Hey, Amelia here. Thanks for joining me for another episode of BTN. Coming up today, discover why some recycling schemes have hit a bump in the road. We'll reveal what's hidden in this secret underground vault. And have you ever wondered how your eyes work? Matt's looking for the answer, and biscuits, it seems. All that and more soon. But first, we're taking you to the US, where tragedy has inspired a group of kids to campaign for stricter gun controls. The young leaders of this movement were caught up in last week's school shooting in Florida. Now they've taken their message right to the president's door.
Save our children! Save our children!
These students have marched out of school and come to the nation's capital with one goal in mind.
Protect kids, not guns! Protect kids, not guns!
Changing their country's gun laws.
Me and my friend just kind of came to the realization that we need change and we need it now. That no one else is going to do it for us, so we might as well do it ourselves.
Here and in other parts of the country, many kids and adults have shown their anger, frustration and sadness after another school shooting, this time at a Florida high school. It's the 6th shooting this year in the US, which has hurt or killed students.
The fact that we can't go to school and feel safe every day when we're supposed to feel safe is a problem.
Personally, I've cried a lot, and it's turned into anger, not violence or anything, just anger as in motivation to actually do something, not only for my community, but for everyone that lives in the United States.
See, US gun laws are very different to Australian ones, and so are the attitudes towards them. While around 6% of Aussie households have guns, that number's around 40% in the United States. Owning a gun is seen as really important to some Americans because the American Constitution guarantees its citizens the right to bear arms. The National Rifle Association, or NRA, is one of the most powerful groups in America. They donate money to politicians who they hope will support their views. Back in 2016, they paid more than $14.5 million in campaign ads for now President Donald Trump.
We are Donald Trump's strongest, most unflinching ally. The powerful partner.
They give money to a lot of other politicians too. Their aim is to protect the Second Amendment to the American Constitution. That's the bearing arms thing. But what arms actually means has changed a lot over time. When the Second Amendment was written, the most common gun was a musket. Today, in the same time it takes to fire and reload a musket, a semi-automatic weapon like the one used in the Florida shootings can be fired at least 15 times, and if modified, that number can be a lot higher. And that's all perfectly legal in the US if you're 18.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
These guys want to stop people being able to get powerful weapons like that, and for there to be stricter checks before people are allowed to own a gun. Others disagree. They don't want stricter gun rules because they say it's their right by law to be able to have one. They say they want to be able to protect themselves. The President, Donald Trump, met with survivors of the shooting to hear what they have to say and to talk about what happens next.
And we're going to do something about this horrible situation that's going on. We're going to all figure it out together.
He suggested stricter background and mental health checks. But these guys want him to go further and say they're not giving up the fight for change.
This is 100% preventable, and us knowing that we're able to do something about it. We're old enough to actually speak for ourselves and say we don't want this.
Now, we talked about some fairly scary events in that story, so if it's left you feeling a bit worried, then you can head to our website and click on this picture. There's heaps of info there that can help. This week's biggest news, Australia has a new Deputy Prime Minister. Michael Cormack became the second most powerful person in Australia after being elected leader of the National Party. He got his shot after Barnaby Joyce decided to step down and move to the backbench.
On Monday morning at the party room, I will step down as the Leader of the National Party and Deputy Prime Minister of Australia.
McCormack was sworn in by the Governor-General on Monday and says he's excited to work with the PM.
We are committed as Nationals, along with the Liberals, to do everything in our power to make sure that we stay in government.
To another Parliament House drama now, brush-tailed possums are making a nuisance of themselves there by building cosy little homes in air conditioning units, garden sheds, even in the drain pipe of the parliamentary tennis court. Gardeners decided to solve the problem by trying to make them a nicer home elsewhere. But while a lot of possums moved into the new digs, a few stubborn ones seem to want to stick with what they know. Scientists in the UK have discovered how to make things float using sound. They've created a kind of tractor beam using 250 tiny loudspeakers that make a sound too high-pitched for humans to hear. But the sound is powerful enough to lift tiny objects into the air. And while it looks pretty cool, its inventors reckon it'll actually be really handy during surgery to remove tiny blockages in the body. And finally, it doesn't get more Aussie than this. People from all over the country travelled to Kurri Kurri in New South Wales to fight for the title of Australia's best mullet.
I've had mine since 1972, so most of the guys I'm competing with probably weren't born then.
The inaugural festival honoured the best cuts in several categories. And there's plenty of experience at the judges' table too.
I think my mullet's become quite prestigious in the last 2 years. I'm named the Mullet Lord.
Organisers hope the Mullet Fest will become a tourist drawcard. Next up, we're getting you ready for Clean Up Australia Day on the 2nd of March with a special look at recycling. In the past, we've told you that surprisingly only some of the recycling you put out each week is actually processed and used again. Some of it is stored in warehouses, some is shipped overseas to be processed. But now China has announced that it's banning this type of import. Take a look.
For us Aussies, recycling is just another part of the week. Wheeling out that yellow bin and waving our waste goodbye.
Bye recycling, I'll miss you. Safe travels. Oh, hi Meryl. But have you ever wondered what actually happens to the stuff we recycle?
Sean, he's talking to the bin again.
Well, it all goes to a massive recycling plant that carefully separates it into plastic, cardboard, metal and glass. Once it's been organised, it's ready to be transformed into new raw materials that can be used to make new things. But it might surprise you to learn that a lot of the time that doesn't actually happen in Australia. Instead, we sell a lot of our recycling waste to overseas companies in Indonesia, Malaysia and China. Wages are much lower there, so it's cheaper to process and reuse in these countries. Until recently, China was Australia's biggest buyer, taking around 600,000 tonnes of waste each year. But on January 1st, it announced a ban on waste that hasn't been sorted properly or is too dirty to be easily reused. It's part of a push by China's government to improve its own environment and reduce pollution.
It's all plastic material, but it's all mixed. It's different chemical compositions, so to actually make it into new products is quite difficult. And previously, China and other countries have sorted this into discrete products using cheap labour, and it's what China doesn't want to do anymore.
The ban is already starting to have an impact. Around 200 tonnes of waste goes to recycling deposits like this one each and every day. But if it can't be sold on, it starts to build up. In some cases, recycling companies have had to lease warehouses to hold the waste until they have a solution.
Look, worst case scenario, it would end up in the landfill. Essentially that's the backup.
It'd be a travesty to put this resource into landfill.
Some people reckon we should be looking to follow other countries, like Sweden. On average, only 1% of household waste there ends up in landfill. The rest is recycled into new products or turned into energy. And Sweden's recycling plants are so efficient that it now imports waste from other countries just to keep them open. Back home, experts say that despite all these issues, it's important for Aussies to keep recycling anyway. And they hope governments and businesses can work together to find a clever solution, and fast. Have you got a question about recycling? Ask me live on Friday during Ask a Reporter. Head to our website for all the details.
Did you know each aluminium can you recycle saves enough electricity to run a TV for 3 hours? Australia will soon send lots of seeds to this impressive-looking place nicknamed the Doomsday Vault. Next, Jack explains why they need so many of our seeds in such a cold place.
Right now, some scientists are working really hard.
Kind of like me.
Preparing thousands of seeds.
Kinda like me.
To be sent to an underground fortress.
Bum, bum, bum.
The Doomsday Vault.
Actually, it's not as scary as it sounds. It's just a seed bank. But one day, it could save the world. The seed bank is hidden on a Norwegian island, deep in the Arctic. In fact, it's so isolated that more polar bears live here than people. It was designed to store seeds from food crops, so humans will still be able to feed themselves if something really, really bad happens, and it wipes out our crops. Think natural disasters, outbreaks of disease, climate change, or even war. That's how this place got the cheery nickname, the Doomsday Vault. It's actually more like a giant refrigerator that keeps the seeds cold so they can be stored for a really long time. It holds nearly 900,000 types of seeds used in agriculture. Everything from wheat and barley to potatoes, eggplants, and almost 150,000 varieties of rice. Who knew there were so many types of rice? And now Australia's about to make its biggest deposit yet as part of the Vault's 10th anniversary. Happy birthday, Vault! This week, more than 30 crates containing 34,000 different types of Australian grain and pasture seeds will be delivered.
What we have really made a conscious effort to do is to capture all the commercial varieties that farmers have grown over the last 50, 100 years. So all the historical ones and all the ones that they're currently growing now.
Australia actually has its own seed banks, but they aren't buried underground in the snow. They're fairly normal looking warehouses, like this one in regional Victoria. And here, the seeds are regularly taken out of the vault and used to grow crops.
Yep.
It's the third time Australia has sent seeds over to the Doomsday Vault, and other countries will be adding more seeds to the collection this year too. But despite all these extra birthday seeds, the vault isn't even close to being full yet. In fact, experts say it has the capacity to store about 2.5 billion seeds, which means there should be plenty of room for my seeds to fit.
Does anyone know the postcode for Svalbard?
Which of these is not part of a seed? Is it endosperm, oatmeal, or germ? The answer is oatmeal.
Hi BTN, it's Saurabh here, and my question is, why do we have two eyes but see one of everything?
How many eyes are you looking out of? Because I'm looking out of both eyes, but I'm only seeing one overall image. Are you seeing me the same way? Is there just one of me? Well, maybe not anymore. The way our sight works is actually pretty amazing. But it's less to do with our eyes themselves, however delicious, and more to do with how our brain handles what our eyes are seeing. I've come to an eye clinic to meet someone who can explain why. Genevieve is an ophthalmologist. That means she's a doctor who specialises in eyes.
Can you still see me?
And performs eye surgeries. So, Genevieve, why do we have two eyes but only one image we're actually seeing?
Well, Matt, we've got two eyes that both look in the same direction, but they give slightly different images that go to your brain, and the brain puts those two images together to give us a picture. And using two eyes, we can see things in depth and we can judge distance better than if we had only one.
And the whole thing happens in a fraction of a second. Having two eyes, slightly apart, also gives us a wider field of vision than just having one.
Now I'm just going to put this patch on.
Yeah. Genevieve's putting me through a simple test to show why an extra eye helps with gauging depth.
Right. Here's a texter.
Yep.
Hold
Red's
that in
good
front
colour.
of you
Yeah.
at eye level.
Yeah.
Yep, good. And I'm going to put another texter in your other hand, and I
Yeah.
want you to bring your hand around
Yeah.
so that you're touching both ends together.
Yeah. Oh no.
Tricky, isn't it?
Can I do that again?
Sure. And I'm
Yeah.
going to give you two eyes now.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, all right. Easy.
Bang. Two eyes are better than one.
Yeah, two eyes are definitely better than one. I'm sure in real life, you don't normally just have to join textures together, but just for simple things like walking around objects or trying to pick something up, if you had one eye, those tasks become a bit more difficult.
Yeah, your brain uses both eyes to work out how far away objects are from us. And that's why birds like eagles or owls have their eyes close together and in the front of their head so they can find their dinner.
That's called binocular vision. That's the kind us humans have, and it's clearly very handy for animals, mostly predators, who need precise vision. Others are monocular, where each eye is used separately.
Well, if you've ever noticed a lizard, you would know that its eyes are on the side of its head. It's good to have a wide field of view if you want to see predators coming that are trying to attack you. So it's really good to have that field of view, but you don't necessarily need to have binocular vision that helps you judge distances. But having said that, there are lots of people that walk around with just one eye and they do fine.
So whether you're a lizard, a tiger, or a human, there are some definite advantages to having the eyes that you do. Sorry, John. Unless you're a biscuit. Then you're in trouble.
How many times does the average person blink each minute? Is it once, 4 times, or 12 times? The answer is 12 times.
The Winter Olympics has wrapped up for another 4 years. The closing ceremony was held on Sunday night and featured a beautiful light show, Korean pop stars, and the traditional parade, with athletes from North and South Korea marching together. The final medal tally saw Norway take out the most medals with 14 gold and a total of 39, followed by Germany's 31 and then Canada, which took home 29 medals. Our Aussie Winter Olympians scored 2 silvers and a bronze. To basketball, the Boomers have beaten Chinese Taipei 88-68 to advance to the second round of World Cup qualifiers. Mitch Creek led the way with 18 points. The Boomers won't compete in the next stage until June. To AFLW now, and the match between Adelaide and GWS was a pretty wet and wild one. The weather was a pain for both teams, and the game ended in a draw with just 19 points apiece. It's been a tough season so far for the Crows. They're the defending champions, but are sitting 7th on the ladder. Chinese New Year's celebrations continued in Sydney over the weekend with dragon boat racing. It's a bit like rowing, plus there's a drummer to keep the rhythm going. It's a popular cultural sport in China that's been around for about 2,000 years.
It's quite a good team sport because everybody has to do exactly the same thing.
And people have flocked to Tasmania for a one-of-a-kind bicycle race, the National Penny Farthing Championships. It was a hard-fought contest, but James Fowler managed to take home his 4th title. Meanwhile, in the junior event, Banjo took out the win.
It's my first time to be first. For all other years, I've just gotten 3rd, and it feels good to be first.
I didn't expect to get any medals. I thought it was just going to be pretty slow because I only learnt like maybe 2 weeks ago or something.
Finally today, we're going to meet Australia's slam poetry champion. His name is Solly Raphael and he's just 13 years old. We asked him to explain what slam poetry is and why he loves it so much.
Now, to get evolution, you need to do something that's unique and new, like inventing a psychotic robotic barbecue or an antibiotic azotic beef stew to get rid of the flu and make you feel fresh and new.
I wrote my first poem when I was about 9, and I've been writing since I can remember, and I used to write comics and books, so I've always loved writing, and the past few years I've been listening to a lot of rappers, so I've become to like rapping as well. And Mum showed me a YouTube on a slam poet that I'm actually in contact with now, and he's really great. And yeah, I thought, I like this, so I may as well do it. When I started, it was quite hard to find everything rhyming and fitting into structures of poems and to make a slam poem, but now, yeah, it's pretty easy.
Humans are still willing to believe we can achieve much more than we can perceive to conceive.
They're a lot about politics and equality and education and a bit about the environment. So I have a lot of poems that I don't like, and yeah, I find myself getting better and better each day.
That our government should take the blame for making us all the same, even though we don't want to be like the rest.
I've just found I love these topics over watching the news and BTN and looking at newspapers. I've sort of found an interest in these topics. I felt that I was the only one sort of interested, but now being what I'm doing, I've found other people that are interested, which is really great.
Achieve much more than we can perceive.
It was really, I guess, nerve-wracking to go up, so each stage went up a huge amount of hundreds of people in audience numbers, so it was quite scary going on to bigger stages.
Turns out the house is in a bad position, has a horrible mould condition that is going under demolition. Maybe the agent faked the acquisition. Oh dear, wasn't that a bad decision? Should have listened to your intuition.
With a poem, it has a specific structure and what emotion you use in that structure of poetry, where slam poetry is you can use any topic you like, any structure, any form, so slow and fast verses, any stanzas, so it's really open to whatever the writer loves.
Transform your pens, let history help our future. Speak to those who don't want to listen and embrace our differences.
Using a lot of emotion and passion in your words, making the reader feel what you feel as a writer. I find that's really important in just using a lot of good emotion in each word and sentence of a rhyme.
We're finding a solution for pollution on our convolution as a counter-evolution and retribution. All for one thing, to prove evolution.
Thanks, Solly. Awesome work. Well, that wraps us up for today, but the fun doesn't have to end here. You can always head to our website for more, whether you're a kid or even a teacher. See you next week for more BTN.